Today's daf we're going to be learning is Kiddushin Daf Mem Gimel. This is the daf for Yom Kippur. So Gmar Chatima Tova to everybody. Today's daf is sponsored by Gita and David Neufeld in loving memory of Meir ben Aryeh Leib Halevi, Marvin Stoker. Although his title of Zaidi was an honorary one, he and Lahavdil ben Chaim L'Chaim, Babi Fran, were and continue to be an important part of our family. His love of learning and of Eretz Yisrael was surpassed only by his loving care for our dear Babi Fran. May he continue to be a Melitz Yosher for her and all of us. We're going to get started now with our daf. We're in the middle of a discussion of how do we know that ein shaliach lidvar avera. That means if I send you to sin, to do something that's wrong, you get punished and not me. And then we said, but wait, there's cases where the Torah says that I get punished for sending you to do a message, for being a messenger for me. What was that case? We saw me'ila, right? If I send you to use money that was sanctified money, and I didn't realize, and you didn't realize, and you did exactly what I said, I actually get punished. So then we said, right, that should be the paradigm then, to which we answered, oh no, there's two cases where the Torah says it, and two cases we don't learn from, as we've seen a number of times already in this Masechet. What was that? Shlichut yad, not taking, right, basically doing something to ruin somebody's, when I was watching something and I did something wrong. Then if I told my slave or messenger to do it, I actually would be liable also. To which we said that only is two ktuvim, then two of this situation, if you hold by Beit Hillel's drasha. But Beit Shamai's drasha was not to learn that. Beit Shamai had a different drasha, and that's where we ended the last line of Mem Bet Amud Bet. Hanicha leBeit Hillel. So according to Beit Hillel, we have two ktuvim, me'ila and shlichut yad. From there, we can't learn to anywhere else because there's two cases. But Beit Shamai learned al kol dvar pesha is coming to include something else entirely. That I'm liable if I have thoughts to ruin your, not watch properly your item. So so we're back to saying there's only one and one should build a paradigm. To which they answer, we have another case. What is this? If I steal an animal, a shore or set, a big animal or a smaller animal, an ox or a sheep or a lamb, and I slaughter it or sell it, what happens? I have to pay 5 times the amount for the bigger animal and 4 times for the smaller animal, okay, as opposed to double payment for usual theft. So now they say, now that's a case, we'll see in a minute why, that also, if I send you to sell it or you to slaughter it, I'm liable. To which they say, so me'ila and tvicha mechira are two ktuvim abim ke'echad. There are two cases where it says that a shaliach is not responsible and the person who sent the shaliach is responsible. And anytime we have two, we can't learn from here to anywhere else. And that's why, in general, we know that ein shaliach lidvar avera, there's no such thing as shlichut. When I send you to do a sin, it's your fault for doing it, other than these two exceptions to the rule. So me'ila, we already know, hadamaran, we already learned how we know it's an exception to the rule. Or how we know that there is shlichut in this case, that my shaliach is operating on my behalf, so I get punished. Tvicha u'mechira mahi. Where do we learn for tvicha u'mechira? Amarkra u'tvacho u'mecharo. We're going to actually have 3 different sources that all teach the same thing. The first one is to say, well, it says, and you slaughter or sell. So what do you see here? Slaughtering the animal goes together with selling the animal. Now, ma mechira al yidei acher. If I sell the animal, it takes 2 to tango. I can't sell an animal unless I have a buyer. So, it's like if I go on the black market, I'm not actually selling and sell something that I stole. If I stole it and sell it on the black market, well, I'm only going to be liable if somebody buys it. But if nobody buys it, then I'm not liable for selling it. So therefore, also slaughtering, I'm going to be liable even though it takes someone else to buy it, right? Or in this case, even if I ask someone else to slaughter it, I'm still liable, even if there's someone else in the picture. So just like in the sale, there's someone else in the picture. If you didn't buy it, well, I wouldn't have done anything wrong. I mean, I did steal it, but I'm talking about the selling part of it. I didn't do anything wrong. Likewise, the slaughtering, if I told you to do it, I'm still involved and I basically am responsible. Debate Rabbi Yishmael Tanan. Now, it's Rabbi Yishmael, they had a different drasha. Oh, it could have said tvacho and mecharo. And sometimes "and" in the Torah really means "or," and it would have meant the same thing, right? If you slaughter or sell, even without the word "or." So the word "o" comes the rabot tashaliach to include. I'm going to be responsible to pay this amount, even if I did it with a messenger. A third option, it says at the end of that pasuk, you have to pay 4 in place of the shore, and 5 in place of the ox, and 4 in place of the smaller animal, the lamb or the sheep. So the word tachat isn't really so necessary. That also comes to include et hashaliach. So these were 3 different drashot that all teach you, again, either or, but they all teach you that if I send someone to do it for me, I'm actually liable. So now we have 2 ktuvim, and this is why we don't learn it. Now we know where this is going based on previous sugiyot we've seen like this. This only works if you say you can't learn from 2 psukim. But if you say, just because it's mentioned twice in the Torah, doesn't mean you can't learn from there. 2 actually does build a paradigm. Only 3 doesn't build a paradigm. So what are we going to say? So again, we have 2 tracks, either me'ila and shlichut yad, or me'ila and tvicha b'chira, right? Selling or slaughtering the animal. Those are 2 ktuvim. But now we have to go on an entirely different track and say, well, if you think 2 can teach, then how did we get to the fact that ein shaliach lidvar avera? It seems to go against those 2, and why don't we build a paradigm from that? To which they're going to say there's a third case, and that third case is the one that teaches to everywhere else, that ein shaliach lidvar avera, and we'll see why in a minute. If I slaughter something outside the temple, the Torah says, if I didn't bring it al petachol moed, I didn't bring it to bring my sacrifice, dam yechashev laishahu, it will be like I spilled blood. Okay, well, blood will be for that man, meaning he's also, we'll see in a minute, he's going to get the death penalty, but blood it is considered for that man. Dam shapach, he spilled blood, meaning you killed an animal for no reason. And you get karet because you slaughtered it outside the temple. So now, if you noticed, maybe you didn't notice, but it said, dam yechashev laishahu will be blood. It will be considered like blood for that person. Notice that man. And then it says, v'nichrat ha'ishahu. In the same pasuk it says, and this particular man will get cut off. So the first time we're going to darshan the first ha'ishahu, this particular man, you could probably see where this is going. Dam yechashev la'ishahu, dam shafach, hu v'lo shlucho. Now, really, shlucho doesn't seem right. It should be shilucho. He and not the one who sent him. Who's liable? The one who actually slaughtered it. Ha'ishahu is the one who did it, not the one who sent him to do it. So that's what they say. Now, that's the first ha'ishahu. Okay, so this appears in one place, and we have me'ila and, let's say, tvicho mechira in 2 other places. So again, why are we going to learn from one and not the other? Well, b'chol Torah minalan. So how are we going to learn for all other cases that we're going to really, the model is shchutei chutz, which tells you that the shaliach is actually, the messenger is going to get the punishment. Well, what's the issue? Hadra katav rachamana. Right, so, I skipped a line. Minalan. Right, and they basically say, in other words, for all intents and purposes, we can learn from shchutei chutz, or we can learn from me'ila and tvicho mechira, the exact opposite. So, hadar katav rachmana v'nichrata ishahu, because it again repeats in the pasuk, this man will be cut off. Why does it have to say this man again? We already know it's this man. We were just talking about it. Since it's not necessary to teach you about anything in this pasuk, must be there to say, this builds a paradigm. So the extra Ishahu comes to say we're building a paradigm for all other cases in the Torah. Okay, now we have to go back to our ping pong, because the first opinion didn't need this shchutei chutz. It already knew it because me'ila and tvicho mechira, or me'ila and shlichut yad are 2 ktuvim, and we don't learn from them. And therefore, if we don't learn from them, these are the exceptions, meaning the rule is really the opposite, which is, again, there's no such thing as a messenger sending a messenger to do your dirty work. The messenger is the one who's responsible. So now they say, now if you held that you can't learn from 2 things, and therefore you don't need ha'ishahu drasha to tell you that shchutei chutz builds the paradigm. So what do you do with these psukim? What do you need with hahu in both these psukim? So chad l'mi'ute, in this one pasuk, the 2 mentions of chad hu below. Sorry, I missed it. Chad l'mi'ute shnayim shochazim v'sakin v'shochatim. One is to exclude 2 people who hold the knife and together slaughter. This we learned in Masechet Shabbat. If 2 people do a malacha together, they're not liable. So here also, if 2 people are holding the knife and they slaughter it outside the temple, they're not liable. because it has to be one person only doing it. If two people did it together, they did something wrong, but they don't get the death penalty. Here it's kared. And the second mention of Aisha, who is to tell you, he and not someone who was forced to do it. You won't get punished if you were forced into it, not if it was accidental, and not if someone tricked you into doing it, kind of told you, oh, it's fine, or this is considered part of the temple, and it really wasn't. The idach, now we have a problem, because the first person who we had today, who darshan Aisha, who said that's teaching us that this builds the paradigm, so where's he going to have all those other drashot from? Mehu hahu, because it doesn't say ha'ish hu, this person, it says ha'ish hahu. So from the fact that it has the hey in the beginning of the word, the person, it teaches you, or hahu, it's exactly a little hard to translate, how you translate it into English exactly. And the truth is, grammatically or syntactically, it wouldn't really make sense to write who. But the world of drashot, they like to darshan the fact that the word is made up of two parts. Ha, who, we can learn two different things from. V'idach, and the person who doesn't learn two things from it, why not? Oh, very simply, huahu lo darish. She doesn't think that you can darshan things like that. Okay, now we go back for a minute. The hadatane, now we're going to have a case where it says in a braita, ha'omer l'shlucho, se haroget hanefesh, hu chayav v'shochav patur. If I say to a messenger, go and kill somebody, seems pretty obvious, right? Hu chayav v'shochav patur. I told you to go kill someone. He's responsible. I am not. Okay. You might say it seems obvious. Obviously not so obvious, because if I send someone to kill, right, this happens a lot of times where people get sent to do assassinations and all that, and really everyone ends up somewhat responsible. But in Torah law, really, it's one person's responsible for killing another person. If they did the act, they did the killing, they're responsible. However, Shamaya Zaken disagrees and says, what are you talking about? Shamaya Zaken omer mishum Chagai Navi. Interesting, he's quoting Chagai the Navi. Shochav Chayav, the person who sends him is Chayav. And how do we know this? From none other than David HaMelech, who sent Uriah Hittite to war to die. So remember, he wanted to be with Bathsheba. What is he told by the Navi there? Interestingly, he's told this by Natan Navi. It's not the same as Chagai Navi, but they are mentioning Navi here in two different contexts. I'm not sure if it's coincidental or not. But it says in the Pasuk, Oto haragta b'cheref b'nei Ammon. You killed him by the sword of the Ammonites, which means you killed him. Now, he didn't kill him directly. He just sent him out to war, but got him killed. So now we have to understand my time into Shamaya Zaken. Why does Shamaya Zaken think that the one who sent is responsible? Okay, because this also says again, yesh shlichut b'arabera. There is a concept of shlichut in sending someone to kill, and the person who sent is responsible. So now we're going to have three different ways of understanding Shamaya Zaken. First way, the whole thing we've been going through to prove, there is no such thing, is now going to be proven the opposite, which is what he means. He holds two ktuvim, me'ila and shlichut yad, or me'ila and tfachol mechachol can teach. They build the paradigm, which teaches you the sender is always responsible. And huahu lo darish, and he doesn't darish. And remember, we said, if you say shnei ktuvim are melamed, how you're going to say ein shlichut b'arabera? You need the huahu drasha. Only this person, meaning the one who actually did it, not the one who sent. But if you don't buy that, and you don't take either of those drashot, then you end up saying, really, they build the paradigm, and really the one who sends is responsible. That's option one. Option two, no, really those drashot exist, but what? My chayav b'dinei shamayim. When David was told that you're chayav oto haragta b'cheref b'nei Ammon, what he meant is God will give you your punishment. So now, right, that's what it means. So it doesn't mean you can, right? Who's going to get the death penalty in the court? The one who actually did the killing. But you'll be liable in the hands of the court. That's Shamaya Zaken. In which case, Tanakama doesn't think so. What? Now they're saying, there's no way that they really think that if you send someone to kill someone else, you're going to go off scot-free. No, you just can't get convicted for the death penalty in the courts. God will punish you. So what do they say? So how could it possibly be that Tanakama says God won't punish you? Because Tanakama says you're not responsible. Clearly, even Tanakama thinks you're going to get punished. The question is just to what degree. So Shamaya Zaken thinks to a very serious degree, almost as if you killed somebody. or as if you killed someone, we don't know. But the Tanna Kama is like, you did something wrong, but you're not going to get the death penalty for it. You're not going to get even close, even by the hand, right? It's certainly not in court, but even by the hands of God, you're not going to get something so serious. So again, they all think it's only by the hands of God. The question is, how serious do they think God's going to punish this person? Third option of Shamaya Zaken, about the David HaMelech case. It's specifically in murder cases. Murder cases, we're going to say, if you send someone to murder someone, you're responsible as well. Okay, and because the Torah specifically said, you killed, and that teaches us, this builds the paradigm, that in murder cases, you're going to be responsible. Ve'idach, so now what's Tanna Kama going to say? Why do they think not? How do they understand the pasuk? Oto haragta, you killed. To which he says, this is to you like the sword of the Ammonites, meaning, now the Ammonites killed all sorts of Jews. David wasn't responsible for any of them. You're responsible for Uriah's death, just like you're responsible for everyone else that the Ammonites killed, which means you're not responsible at all. And that's a totally different way that we can say that's how Tanna Kama understands this pasuk, who doesn't think that you're responsible at all. So, you're not going to get punished. Now, why wouldn't David get punished for Uriah Chiti? My time, because he committed treason against the king. Anyone who commits treason is worthy of the death penalty. And that's why David wasn't responsible at all, according to Tanna Kama. To Ka'amarle, what did he do that he did treason against the king? Well, he said to David, my master Yoav and all the avadim of my master are dwelling in the fields. And what didn't he say? Your slave, your servant, Yoav. Should have said your servant Yoav. It wasn't respectful to the king to say in front of the king, the head of the army is my master. What about David? David is the master and Yoav works for him. So that was disrespectful to the king, and for that he was deserving of the death penalty, and that's why David doesn't get punished for it. Okay, and he understands the pasuk to actually mean David is not punished, which was the opposite of the way Shamaya Zaken explained. So we had three explanations of how to understand this opinion of Shamaya Zaken and why he thinks David was responsible. Either, again, let's just review, either because he actually thinks and he disagrees with everything we've been saying, right? And says Me'ila and the other case set the tone, right? Teach us. Or he says it's specifically, right? The last one was specifically in a murder case, or it's only by the hands of God, but not by the hands of man. Now, Rava goes back to the first one. It says, Imtim Tzalomer, Saval, Shamai, Shnei Ktuvim Habim Kechav Melamdim. If you want to say we hold like Shamai, that two psukim really, that Shamai holds, that two psukim do set up the paradigm, and huahu lo darish, and that's the reason, because he doesn't have any of those drashot, and he really learns it from Me'ila in the other case. Modeh be'omer l'shlucho, there is one exception to the rule, and that's if he thinks across the board there is such a concept of, and as always, there is shaliach l'dvar bera. You are functioning like me, in which case I'm responsible if I sent you to do it and not you. So he would be modeh, though. He would agree in one particular type of situation. If I said to a shaliach, go sleep with someone who is forbidden to you, forbidden relationship, or in a case where, we're going to talk about this in a second, we'll see it inside, where there's benefit to you. If you benefit by doing something, it's enjoyable for you, it's pleasurable activity, whether it's eating or having sexual relations, then you're going to be responsible and not me. There's no such thing in the Torah where you get the benefit of doing the sin, the pleasure of it, and I get punished for it. That doesn't make any sense. So that's the end of our sugya. So the beginning was to figure out, how do we know that the paradigm we're going to learn it from is from shchutei chutz and not from the other cases? And then what do we do with this other opinion of Shamaya Zaken, which seems to disagree? And we have three different explanations. Itmar. Now we get to a different machlok. Rav Amal about shlichut, but not about sinning. Rav Amal shaliach nasa'ed. If I appoint you to be a shaliach, you can also be a witness. Debei Rabbi Shila amrei, but in the house of Rabbi Shila, the amrei ain't shaliach nasa'ed. A shaliach cannot function as a witness. My time of debate Rabbi Shila. So first they're going to say, why can't the messenger function as a witness in that situation? In other words, I sent you to deliver money to someone, or I sent you to get betrothed for me. can you be the aid Kiddushin or not? So why does Rabbi Shila say no? If it's because I didn't say you should be my witness, what you always need to say that? Are you going to say then if a man gets betrothed to a woman in front of two people, didn't say you're my witnesses and designated them as witnesses? What you're going to say it wasn't valid Kiddushin? Of course it's a valid Kiddushin. Now you might have been at weddings and noticed that we do say atem eidan. That seems to be for a different reason. One of the main reason is really because we want to make sure there might be people who are not kosher witnesses. And we learned in Gittin that if some of the witnesses are not kosher, then all the witnesses, then we can't say that this is kosher witnesses. Like there's no witnesses really. If some of them are canceled, all of them are canceled. You can't basically go in a group of witnesses with non-kosher witnesses. So if there are people there who aren't kosher witnesses, then basically there's no really witnesses. So we designate the witnesses, say you're the witnesses, and that, right? But if you just happen to be in a place and there's only two witnesses, they're your witnesses. You don't have to designate them. There are certain cases where you have to, but that's not for today. So Ella Rav Amal, so it can't be that. It can't be that because you didn't designate. So now we're going to explain. Rav Amal shaliach nasa eid alume kama alimne lemiltin. Who better knows what's going on than the one you sent to be your messenger? I sent the messenger, or let's say the guy sends the messenger to betroth a woman for him. Those messengers know the deal much better, right? They're the ones involved in the case. They should be the ones to testify. Debate Rabbi Shila Amre ain't shaliach nasei kevanda amar mal shlucho shel adam kimoto havale kegufe. Well, since we say the shaliach is like me, well, I can't testify in something that has to do with me. So I can't testify to my own betrothal, for example. So the witness is just like me, basically. And therefore, they're connected, what we call it, nogeh b'davar. They're a party in the deal because they're basically filling in for my shoes. So they can't testify about this case. So that's debate Rabbi Shila. Made debate. And we're going to bring a difficulty on Rav, who says they can. Somebody says to three people, go and betroth me a woman. This sounds very much like the get case, where we say kitvu tenu, right? And then one writes and two give, do it like that. So if you say echad shaliach, you really only need one. So what he really meant was one is the messenger. Ushnayim edim kivrei Beit Shamai. The other two function as witnesses. Notice here, the shaliach doesn't function as a witness. Beit Hillel omrim kulam shluchim ve'ein shliach nasa ed. So Beit Hillel says they're all messengers and none of them can be edim at all because the shaliach can't become an aid. So what do you see here? First of all, you notice that Agam lo pligi ela b'shlosha. Their whole machloka, by the way, was about three, and whether when you said to three, could one function as the witness, as the messenger, and the other two be a witnesses, or can none of them? But they all agreed. Nobody thinks that the one who is the messenger could also be a shaliach. In a case of two, none of them would agree that this would work. You can't. Even Beit Shamai wouldn't say the one who's the messenger also functions as a witness together with the second guy. No. So who amar ki haitana? So how could Rav say that a witness and forget about that? He would, like, he doesn't match Beit Shamai, and he for sure doesn't match Beit Hillel, who doesn't even think that the others who he said go betroth my wife could function only as witnesses and not as messengers. So basically, we're going to see that there were two ways to understand the machloket Beit Shamai Beit Hillel, and it must be that Rav, who the amal ki haitana, he held like the following Tana, who understood their machloket differently. Did Tanya, as it says in a Braita, Rabbi Natan Omer, Beit Shamai omrim shaliach ve'ed echad, uBeit Hillel omrim shaliach u'shnei edim. Beit Shamai said what we thought he didn't say before, which is you could have one shaliach and one witness, because the shaliach can function both as a witness and as a messenger. So you end up with two witnesses, and there you have Rav's approach. Beit Hillel says shaliach u'shnei edim. You have a messenger with two witnesses because the messenger can't be a witness. Now, you've resolved the problem with Rav to a certain extent. The problem is that Rav holds like Beit Shamai, which doesn't make any sense. And that's the Gemara's next question. Rav ke Beit Shamai? How could that be? Ipuch, flip Beit Shamai, Beit Hillel. You had it wrong. Who said what? And then Rav matches up very nicely with Beit Hillel. He said, no. It's Rav and Rabbi Shila said the opposite. The Rav actually said a shaliach could be a witness, and Rav Shila said couldn't be. So I'm sorry. Rav said it couldn't be, and Rav Shila said it could be. Rav Amal ein shaliach nasa eid. Shaliach can't be a witness, and that matches Beit Hillel in the original text. And to be Rabbi Shila Amrei shaliach nasa eid. Rabbi Shila thinks it can. So 2 different ways to resolve it. And then they point out that the hilchata is shaliach nasa eid. We actually pass on like the first version of Rav, that a shaliach could be a witness. Notice they're not really bothered that Rabbi Shila matched Beit Shamai. Assume because Rav was a greater known rabbi, and it just made less sense that he would hold like Beit Shamai. Maybe you could have some other rabbi that's less known hold like Beit Shamai, but not the mainstream opinion. Halacha is a shaliach can be a witness. Going on with this halacha, we now have a statement of Rav Nachman. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav says the name Rav Nachman. Amar l'shnayim. If somebody says to 2 people, go betroth me this woman. So this is based on what we just said. The shliach could be a witness. So they're both his messengers and they're his witnesses. And likewise with divorce, same thing. And also for dinei mamonot, for monetary issues. So now we're going to go into this and explain why he needed to say each one separately. Now at the top of Amud Bet, and we need them all. Why? By Kiddushin, the witnesses definitely have no interest, self-interest here, because all they're doing is saying this woman can't be with anybody. So they're not permitting her to be with any other man, which would then maybe say, oh, maybe they want to marry her. So there's no self-interest here that they could be lying about, because she's now forbidden to everybody by Kiddushin. Aval gerushin, but if they're testifying that she got divorced, maybe if they were the messengers, maybe they'll claim she already got divorced because maybe they have their eyes on her. Maybe they want to marry her. If you say already gerushin, well, we'll allow it. Well, there's 2 witnesses here, and she can't marry both of them. So if one maybe, but the other one will say, I'm not lying for that, right? And she can't possibly be married to both. Aval mamona, but if it's about a mammon case and they want to basically get out of, they want to claim that money was passed and get themselves out of something, maybe they say, listen, we'll split the money between the 2 of us. And maybe they'll lie, right? Like, let's say I sent them to return my money. I borrowed money from someone, sent them to return my money. And the guy claims he never got the money. And the witnesses say, what do you mean? We're testified. We testified that we delivered the money. And really what they did was pocket the money and split it between the 2 of them. So therefore it's sriche. That's why you need to say there, no, even there, they're believed. And we're going to have to see really why they're believed there. So my kasavar, why are they believed in a monetary case? Maybe they really are splitting the money. Ikasavar, well, if Rav Nachman held, now we're going to see 2 sides of a debate. If he held, if you say, if I lend money to my friend with witnesses, okay, let's say I took out a loan from you and you made sure there were witnesses there at the beginning. You saw the loan take place so you can ensure you get your money back. If we hold that in that case, when I return the money, it has to be in front of witnesses, that's sarich leparo be'edim, then these guys are going to be our witnesses to prove that the money was returned. Hane nogim be'edut ninu. These guys are totally nogim be'edut. Why? Because amre lo parane, if they said we didn't pay back the money, right, amar lehu, right, if they say amre, one second, amre lo paranu, sorry, I just got confused for a second, amra lehu piruni, right, if you lent me the money, if you claim I never got the money back, what will happen? You will come to the 2 witnesses and say, I gave you the money, you have to pay it to them. Because why? This is the story. If there have to be witnesses and there weren't witnesses, then basically the fact that they didn't do it in front of witnesses seems to indicate that really the money wasn't returned. And if you claim that you gave me the money, then we basically are stuck the 2 middle people, the witnesses, the messengers are stuck, and they're going to have to pay the money out of pocket because the borrower says, I gave you the money. And the guy who never got his money back said, I didn't get the money back, and there are no witnesses. Now, if we accept them to be witnesses, then there will be witnesses, but it's all in their self-interest, of course, to say, because otherwise they'll have to come up with the money somehow. So therefore, they're mamash, as we call it, they're really no gea b'davar. They have major self-interest here because they're going to get stuck if the money isn't given right? Since there aren't other witnesses that can see it, and they're the witnesses, that's not going to work. So if they function as witnesses, it's in their self-interest to lie here. That's the basic issue. Ella, it must be, so it can't be Rav Nachman holds that, because if he says we accept these witnesses' testimony as to be, we accept the messengers to be witnesses, can't possibly be. It must be, we hold that if you lend with witnesses, you don't necessarily have to pay back with witnesses. Now, so why then? Now, the point is, these witnesses, no matter what, would be believed then. Why? Because since there weren't witnesses, right, other witnesses, that doesn't mean anything, right? That's not relevant. What could they claim? Migo diyachle lememer. Now it's a migo. Migo is they could have made a better claim. They could have said, Hadrinu lelove. They could have said, we gave the money back to me. They could have claimed. Okay, these witnesses could have said, oh, you claim you never got your money back, and we were sent as messengers to deliver, these two guys in the middle. They could say, well, Michelle, we gave you the money back. We told you we didn't really want to do this shlichut. Now, they didn't say that. What did they say? They said, we paid you the money. So, since they could say we gave the money back to the love, they're believed to say we gave it to the malve. Now, Rashi adds here, why could they say adrina lelove? They could have sent it to the mishalech. They don't even need to take an oath here. Why don't they need to take an oath? Because only in a moda b'miktzat do they need to take an oath. There's no evidence to think that they are lying. So because they could say that, they could also say we gave the money back, and therefore they could function as witnesses to say we're witnesses to the fact that the money was given back. Because in any case, there's no self-interest. They could get out of it either which way. Either they put it on the malve or they put it on the love. It doesn't matter. Now they point out, though, even though Rav Nachman said v'chein l'inyan mamona, that was all before tikkun rabbanan shvuat hesed. Once they were metakin shvuat hesed, and therefore, and in fact, Rav Nachman was the one who instituted this. We'll talk about this in a minute. V'hashta de tikkun rabbanan shvuat hesed mishtab dehane edim diavina le mishtab malve de lo shakele uparale lo v'lamalve. At this point, now the witnesses actually do have self-interest, because we said a minute ago that they don't have to take an oath because of shua moda b'miktzat. It's not a moda b'miktzat. They don't admit to anything. But the rabbis instituted that with this case of three people, and there they talk about in this case of a storekeeper paying my workers for me on credit. So I'm not going to get into the details, but there they say, it's very similar to here, where it's this, I say, you say, and they say, right? I say I gave them money to pay you back. They say they paid you back, and you say I never got the money. In that case, the rule is that the witnesses, the messengers, who are now can't be witnesses because they're parties and they now need to take an oath. So, and it's in their best interest to get out of taking an oath. They would have to take an oath that they actually gave the money back. And you would have to take an oath that you never received your money. And then I would actually have to pay the money again. Okay. So because of that, at this point, when Shvuat Hesed was instituted, it's no longer true that Inyan Mamona, you wouldn't have to, for mamon, for financial issues like loans and like this type of thing, that the witnesses could function, or the messengers could function as witnesses. They can't, because at this point, they actually have self-interest because the oath actually goes on them. Ha'ish mekadesh bito. Now we're moving to the next section of the Mishnah. We'll finish up with this. Ha'ish mekadesh bito. So a man can betroth his daughter when she's a naara. That's the in-between stage, the 6 months after she has pubic hairs, for 6 months. Now we're going to quote a Mishnah in Gitin. Naara murasa, a betrothed woman, right? Naara stage, before she becomes a bogeret. Once she's a bogeret, after those 6 months pass, she does things on her own. Before that, the father does it exclusively. This in-between stage, hiva avia mekablin kitav. She was married off by the father. Either she or the father can accept the get because she's already a naara. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, ein shtei adayim zochot ke'echad. He says, no. You can't have such a thing that either her father or her. Ela avia mekabel gita. Only her father gets the get on her behalf. B'chol she'ena yichola lishmor et gita, ein yichola litgaresh. By the way, another point, her father can accept the get for her, but not if she's so young that she doesn't even understand the concept of watching a get. She can't watch her get, then she doesn't understand the concept that she's supposed to leave the house. And the whole point of a get is you're leaving your house, you're not married here anymore. So if she keeps coming back home, then to her husband's house, and something's wrong here. So her father can't accept the get on her behalf if she doesn't understand the concept of what it means to get divorced. That's a side point. But there's this machloket about whether she is a naara is allowed to accept her get or not. Amar Rish Lakish, we're now going to have machloket Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, ke machloket legirushin kach machloket lekiddushin. Just like they disagree in a divorce case, they also disagree in a Kiddushin case, in marriage. Betrothal, same thing. Can just the father or father and the daughter. And she accept her own Kiddushin when she's in naara. Rabbi Yochanan amar machloket legerushin aval Kiddushin divrei hakol aviyav alohi. Rabbi Yochanan says, no. The machloket is only by divorce. We're going to have to try to understand this, and we won't fully understand it today. But when it comes to Kiddushin, for sure it's only the father. She can't be involved if she's a naara. So now they want to know what's the reason for Rabbi Yochanan. My time de Rabbi Yochanan. Why does he differentiate between Kiddushin and Gerushin? Liable de Rabbanit, right? According to the rabbis who say, because Rabbi Yehuda thinks across the board, only the father. But the rabbis said that when it comes to divorce, she could get her own divorce, but she can't do the marriage. So why is that? So they answer, Gerushin returns her to her father's house. So it's in the father's best interest to get his daughter back into his house. Now, you might say it's a financial burden, but right now the Gemara is going to say it's in his best interest. So therefore, he's happy whether it's he does it or she does it. He doesn't care. It's in his best interest, so she could do it also. Bein hi bein avia. But Kiddushin, but when it comes to Kiddushin, that she's removing herself from the father's domain, avia velo he. He has to make that decision. She can't make that decision if she's still in naara. Okay, again, nowadays, right, marriage is usually done at a much later stage than this, but if she's still young, then no. But we're going to reject this reasoning, so if you're not happy with it, don't worry. This tomorrow will be rejected. Okay, so quick review of our daf. We started with, how do we know that where do we learn it from? Instead of learning it from Ila and other places where actually the one who sends is actually responsible. No, we don't hold that way, although Shamaya as a king did seem to hold that way, either across the board or maybe perhaps in unique situations. Right? We had three different ways of understanding Shamaya as a king with the pasuk he quoted with David HaMelech, who was responsible for Uriah's death. Then we had a whole machloket, is Shaliach Nasa aid or not? And then we went into Rav Nachman once we passed, and Shaliach can be an aid. In which cases does this apply? Rav Nachman said all three, Gidin, Kiddushin, and Mamonot. We had to explain why you need it in all those places. Then we had to say, what does he hold about how malvas are returned? Because if they have to return with witnesses, then how can we trust these witnesses? They're parties in the whole issue here. So then we had to explain it's you don't really need witnesses, and that's why. And really, with the responsibility would go back to the lova, and they really could be believed. And then we said, but it actually all shifted once they were shvuat heiseit, because then they did become parties again in the whole story. And then we just talked about this machloket about Yishma Kadesha Pito, when she's in naara, is it just her, or also, is it just him, or can she also do it? There's a machloket. And is it the same machloket for get as it is for Kiddushin, or is there a difference between getting Kiddushin? And we'll see that more tomorrow. Wishing everybody a Gemar Chatima Tova, and we'll see you after Yom Kippur.